Hi, I'm Danny Chung, and I'm the Program Manager here at the Leonard Transportation Center. As we reflect back on our fourth year of the Regional Mobility Dialogue series, we can see how far we have come. The Leonard Transportation Center continues to make new strides in bringing panels of experts from their respective fields to really talk about the issues that are on the forefront of the private sector, public sector, and the community. Within the 2021 Regional Mobility Dialogue series, there were three overarching themes that were discussed: the environment, technology, and infrastructure. 2021 was a very different year as many businesses were still locked down and employees were still working remotely. And a lot of that contributed towards reducing congestion and air pollution. There were many other interesting pieces as well that were brought up in the discussions, such as infrastructure projects, urban planning, technological advances that we've made over the last few years. So let's hear a little bit more from some of these experts in this discussion.
It's been quite a year, an exciting year for transportation, most recently with the signing of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This historic law not only brings crucial federal funding to the Inland Empire, but it also signals a shift in the way that we as a country think about infrastructure and transportation. It indicates that we are finally prioritizing and committing to investing in the next generation infrastructure, and we are creating jobs for generations to come. I really think that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, certainly for our nation, but I'm very focused on the Inland Empire. Studies show that low-income communities, heavily Latino communities like ours, have historically missed out on their fair share of federal funding for safe and affordable public transportation options, from trains to road repairs, from safe streets and sidewalks, funding reliable buses. It's really critically important for us. Smaller communities with fewer city officials who are trained to apply for grants also struggle to access this money. It's meant higher pollution and worse air quality, less affordable transportation options, and more injuries on roads, bridges, and trains that have not been updated. So it's unacceptable. I know that you know this, and my bill would help guarantee that we finally give these often overlooked communities a fair share. So as we look to expand transportation options in the Inland Empire, whether it's extending the Gold Line into San Bernardino County or finalizing the West Valley Connector, I'm always proud to fight for the people in the Inland Empire, and I'm proud to have helped deliver this crucial support for our communities. I'll continue, my commitment to you is I'll continue to fight for those dollars and to be a voice for all of us.
So this is the conceptual vision of Cucamonga Station. So Cucamonga Station is adjacent to the current existing Metrolink station that is in Rancho Cucamonga. This station is actually the second highest onboarding and exiting station for Metrolink, second to Union Station. We look at the Heart District will bring opportunity and culture to the community, and Cucamonga Station will connect the community to the world. And how does that happen? And that happens with that connectivity of rail service, of bus service, of that connectivity to the amazing Ontario International Airport that is going to have that last mile connection from Cucamonga Station to those terminals. So at Cucamonga Station will be Metrolink, that San Bernardino County line that is already a critical component for commuters to get into LA and out, with future plans for that Redlands line, extension to the Redlands line. Omnitrans will provide the bus rapid transit and local bus service, that connectivity with bus riders. Chaffey College, the major corporate employers that are in the area would be able to have a great access point for their employees. The entrance to the anticipated Ontario Loop tunnel that Ontario International Airport is working on finalizing now, with direct access to the terminals and having automobile and rideshare service available at Cucamonga Station. There's already a connection to the 6th Street bicycle track, with plans for extended connections to additional bicycle tracks in the area, in the surrounding area. And of course, Brightline West trains. That's the one that is so exciting for everybody and for Southern California as a whole. High-speed rail currently in development will have a stop in Apple Valley down the 15 corridor, with Rancho Cucamonga being that entry into Southern California hub.
A lot of people, I'm sure, are aware of all the electrification that's going on the light duty side. Heavy duty is a little bit more challenging simply because of the loads and the range issues and things like that. But you know, to go out and electrify trucks either with batteries and or fuel cell type of solutions, that's some of the things that we help investigate. And at our laboratories, we're able to test these vehicles on dynamometers and figure out performance, how well they're doing. There's been a few pilots on this already as part of the ZANZEF program that the California Air Resources Board sponsors, along with the Air Quality Management District. One of the ones that is very prominent is the Volvo Lights project. So if you want to see the latest and greatest in terms of truck electrification, you can see that there on the right. Algorithms that we've been working on how to move trucks or route trucks differently so that there's less impact on the communities while still accomplishing the different trips that we want to make. Information such as traffic congestion, you can take an algorithm that says, find the shortest time route, right? I want to get there in the quickest amount of time. But now there's other things, looking at how do I get from point A to point B with the least amount of fuel?
SVD is currently the fastest growing airport in the United States for air cargo. And it is also one of only about a handful of airports in the country that the FAA allows to have drones operate on site. So we're in quite a unique position to promote the adoption of drone technology and to really highlight the region as a leader in this sector. We are working very hard to make sure that our region is supplied with people who are properly trained and certified to be drone pilots, to go into all of these various transportation sectors and other sectors, positioning people for successful careers in drone technology. Esri has some very exciting software technology that's used together with drones to basically create a much faster and easier way for people to visualize visual inspections, do mapping, and this technology is being used extensively at SVD.
We've been talking about infrastructure and making a meaningful investment for decades. I've been in those meetings with Mike Burrows and our local leaders having these conversations, and that's why I was just so proud to join my colleagues in supporting the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which will put $550 billion in infrastructure. This is a critical step toward combating climate change, but also extending public transit options, alleviating traffic and reducing smog and pollution in our communities. The Inland Empire is a critical place within Southern California and our role within the country in providing goods movement and transportation priorities to the greater nation. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to draw down on those resources.
There were predictions about peak oil, and those are still being debated with environmentalists and oil companies and others. And we had sort of predictions about peak car at that time. I think as we moved past the Great Recession over the past decade or so, as economic growth did return to the country, we did see a return of vehicle miles traveled and a growth of VMT and reaching the highest ever. A growth of driving and a growth of certainly investment in public transit and a variety of other things. So I look back at that because I think a lot of pronouncements were made back then that the world's never going to be the same, we're going to see fundamental changes in transportation that in the end didn't quite play out as much.
Pre-COVID, there had been actually 3 different studies in the past year or two that had looked at what share of the workforce is conducive to working at home. We were seeing estimates anywhere from 25 to 40%. That, of course, always changes as the nature of the economy changes and as employers and jobs adapt and accommodate. So that could shift. We're almost inevitably going to have hybrid situations in the vast majority of workplaces. So if you're going back to work to see everybody, everybody might not be there. You're still likely to have Zoom participation of some share of the workforce on various meetings and venues, et cetera.
How do you accommodate all these additional people on our transportation system? Do you build more lanes, just keep building lanes, free lanes like we have been doing? Do you manage the system better, or you do a combination of both? So we need to optimize our facilities. We can't build our way out of congestion. There's two ways for managed lanes. One that we all seen is the HOV lanes. It's just managed by occupancy restrictions. Got to be 2+ or 3+ to use the lanes. And the other one, it goes as express lanes, where you have occupancy restrictions and pricing. So these are some of the benefits of express lanes: managed traffic, generates revenue, but it also promotes carpooling. Carpooling is part of express lanes.
And I would say there actually is a way to create a new mode, a new alternative called incentivized on-demand ride sharing using mobile apps. Just like Uber and Lyft, you use your mobile phone to get a ride with a driver who is incentivized to pick you up with a subsidy, an incentive, a cash incentive to do so.
First of all, there is one technology hurdle that is about advanced mileage reporting, right? Because one of the things that we have in the United States in particular is that what roads, who they belong to, is it municipal road, is it federal road, is it private road, is it state road? So these are some of the things that are really critical to implement and to precisely charge and precisely manage the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, from the perspective of the vehicle and understanding where people actually drive.
We are using technology to enable cooperation between various different transportation modes and the city infrastructure as a way to system optimize. So there's been a lot of talk about how electric vehicles and charging infrastructure can pave the way for a cleaner future. But something that people don't often think about or talk about is this opportunity to enable connectivity and cooperation between various different modes of travel, as well as city infrastructure, as a way to really cut back on greenhouse gas emissions, improve energy efficiency, and at the same time improve safety and enable many other benefits as well. Enabling technology to fight things like climate change, improve air quality, and so forth. And with that, being able to scale the technology, our hope for the type of impact that we want to see is somewhat mitigated. And lastly, we've been working closely with national laboratories such as Argonne National Laboratory and NREL. And based on their modeling, we've seen about 20% improvement in transportation energy efficiencies. We recently partnered with City of Riverside, Ontario, RCTC actually, and SBCTA were some of the partners in this regional effort to try to deploy more innovative technologies that are coming out of the labs and secure DOT funding to enable better freight movement, knowing that 40% of inbound freight into the United States comes through LA Long Beach Port, and a lot of that travels through the Inland Empire. And we also know that because of that, the air quality in the region is the worst in the country. So to be able to deploy innovative technologies to better the environment, help improve the outcomes, public health outcomes when it comes to asthma, lung cancer, and so forth, for many of the especially disadvantaged communities has been a really exciting project for us to work on.
Over 40% of all the greenhouse gases in California come from transportation. And if you include the upstream emissions from refineries and the emissions to make cement for roads, it's over 50%. And so we've created this very resource intensive, high impact transportation system. We have congestion, tremendous congestion. It's costly, and that there is all these innovations starting to happen. And of course, from an environmental perspective, we have electrification, We have battery electric vehicles, fuel cell, hydrogen. We have the pooling and sharing. We have micro-mobility. We have the what we call the TNCs, the Lyft and Uber, and Via. We have the what we call micro-mobility. That's the shared bikes and shared scooters. We have these robots. You see a little robot there that actually are already delivering food and other things in some urban areas. And we have automated, actually in Arizona, there is a commercial automated service for people that Waymo, the Google company, is running. And we're just on the cusp of having automation be spreading to our transportation system. We have automated and electric planes starting to fly, as we see here. I've characterized this in terms as the three revolutions, and electrification, automation, and sharing.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about just why is a TPAS needed? And as Kimberly was talking about earlier in relation to the Inland Empire, you're seeing a greater and greater amount of truck traffic. And especially, coming out of the COVID situation, we're reliant so much on that goods movement and those goods delivery, just even as a resident, in addition to businesses. And so if you think about that, truck parking comes along with that, because they have hour of service requirements they have to meet, that they can either get fines or job loss if they don't meet those required rest mandated breaks. And so truck drivers today can spend, more than 80% of drivers are searching for parking more than 30 minutes. And as you see on here, even 40% an hour or longer. So they really have to be thinking proactively about where can I stop and do those breaks, because, often when they're getting closer to their delivery facilities, they're finding that there is no parking and they cannot park at those facilities. And so, in addition to the stress of, every day with their job, there's the stress of just this parking situation. And so we want to make sure that we don't have fatigued drivers, operating on the road either. And so we really want to make sure that there's this chance through this TPAS to have, informed decision making, so that they're less likely to be on the road searching for parking under unsafe operating conditions.
We actually did some work on an optimization problem for a large auto manufacturer. And they thought that they had a number of, let's say it was 300, right? That they thought they had to use 300 cars to be able to do what they needed to do in their assembly line. We reduced it to 200. That's a third reduction. Think about what that would do if you could reduce a third of the number of trucks on a road today. That's significant. So today's computers run in what we call a two-dimensional model, which means they run in a binary space and they look through all the data and they basically look for patterns to match in pairs, all right? A quantum computer actually runs like nature does. And if you get into quantum computing, you'll hear all these strange terms like superposition and entanglement and all this other stuff. What it basically means is the way the world works around you in 3 dimensions. If you make a choice, there's impacts to that choice, right? There's consequences from that choice. That's what a quantum computer does. It models choices to show you the outcomes and the various outcomes and simulates them in real world space. So for example, if I have to load all of these things and I optimize it, that means I'm going to get this result and I'm going to get this kind of loading, this kind of routing, etc. If I change one dimension, here's going to be the impact flow through all of that. If I change another dimension, it does that in real time, instantaneously, so that we can actually look and go, oh, cause and effect. Oh, this gives me my best opportunity. We can't do that today with classical computers, all right? And as a result, these computers deliver far better performance, time to the result. And they also promise to solve problems that we can't even run today. They will be able to model complexity that we can't even fathom today in our markets. We can't fathom solving. We have it, but we just don't have a way to solve it.
But probably one of the most difficult laws to achieve is what's called Senate Bill 375. That's a state law that requires us to demonstrate how our regional plan, all of the investments that we're proposing in our regional plan, will achieve a 19% per person reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. And we have to achieve that reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by reducing vehicle miles traveled. So essentially, we need people to drive 19% less by 2035. And that's really difficult to do when you don't have compelling alternatives to the automobile, when you don't have public transportation options that can get people to where they need to go when they need to go there. We also need to ensure that we are creating access to opportunity, ensuring that all communities have transportation options to reach jobs and schools and critical services. And today we're not doing a great job of that. People who rely on transit oftentimes takes them 2, 3, 4 times as long to get to where they need to go if the transit system gets them there at all. And then we need a cleaner transportation system. We need to reduce our impact on climate change and sea level rise. Transportation is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to do a better job of getting alternatives to people so that we can reduce our impact on the environment. So our strategy that we came up with for achieving these goals is what we call the 5 big moves. And the 5 big moves work together to create a complete mobility as a service transportation experience. So we start with complete corridors, and complete corridors are roadways that accommodate all modes of transportation equally, safely. They're multimodal and they use technology to manage how the roadways are used at different times of the day. Transit Leap is a major investment in high speed, high frequency, high capacity transit service that can compete with the automobile. Mobility hubs are those communities where all of these transportation options come together seamlessly. It's safe, it's easy, it's comfortable to get around without an automobile. There's a mix of land uses. These are the places, the activity centers that you want to be. Flexible fleets are those app-enabled shared mobility services, everything from shared bikes and scooters on up to microtransit. And then next, operating system is what we call the brain of the transportation system. This is really a digital platform that uses data to integrate modes of transportation and manage how the transportation system is used. It's really what makes the glue that keeps everything together, and it's what makes this vision for the future of transportation work. So essentially, it's a data exchange, right? It's ingesting data from smart infrastructure, from public and private transportation services, from apps, and then it's using that data to provide better real-time information to people traveling around the region, better tools, applications that would actually allow for mobility as a service instead of having to have 6 different transportation apps on your phone, Uber and Lyft and scooter share and public transit. It would have everything in one, so you can plan that complete multimodal trip, book it, pay for it very easily. It provides operators with better information, so our transit operators can make changes to services more quickly, as opposed to waiting for static data sets to analyze. And then of course, for planners and policymakers like many of us, having access to this information makes our jobs much easier. We can identify solutions more quickly when we have access to real-time data.
Congestion pricing is one of multiple strategies that we will have to leverage and think about more comprehensively, and that there are multiple services, programs, and that our portfolio really needs to look at how do we deliver service in a way that can provide people with more options for seamless travel.
I would like to thank you for joining us for the year ending in 2021. If you would like to know more about our Regional Mobility Dialogue series, you could visit us at csusb.edu/LTC. On our website, you could find all our highlight videos and all our full-length videos of all our previous dialogues. Our official event hashtag is LTC Talks, and we look forward to seeing you for the 2022 Regional Mobility Dialogue series. On behalf of all my team, I would like to thank you for your continued support.